Princess Zalnith sat in her floating chair on the palace balcony. The sun was setting over Zephyria Prime, painting the sky in colors of purple and gold. She watched the busy streets below where people moved with grace and speed. Their long, thin bodies glowed softly in the evening light. Everyone looked perfect down there. Everyone except her. The princess touched the control panel on her chair. The machine hummed quietly as it kept her in the air. Her legs hung still and useless below her. She had been born this way. The doctors said her mind was different too. While other Zephyrians could speak with their thoughts, she could barely hear the mental voices of others. In a world where everyone shared minds, she was alone. "Princess, your father wants to see you," said Veltar, her servant. The tall alien bowed low. His thoughts whispered in her mind, but the words were fuzzy and hard to understand. "Tell him I will come soon," Zalnith replied out loud. Speaking with her voice felt strange here. Most people only used their mouths to eat. She guided her chair through the crystal hallways of the palace. Servants and guards moved out of her way. Some looked at her with pity. Others turned away completely. She had grown used to both reactions over her 25 years of life. The throne room was huge and filled with floating crystal seats. Emperor Zarthek sat on his golden throne that sparkled with inner light. His mind was powerful and bright. Even Zalneth could feel its strength from across the room. "My daughter," the emperor said aloud, which meant the news was important. "I have made a decision about your future." Zalneth's heart sank. She knew what this meant. "You are 25 now. It is time for you to choose a mate. I have invited noble families from across the galaxy to send their finest sons. There will be a great tournament and celebration." "Father, I do not think anyone will want to marry me," Zalnith said quietly. The emperor's face grew hard. "You are a princess of Zephyria. Your bloodline is pure even if your body is not perfect. Someone will take you." The words hurt, but Zalnith kept her face calm. She had learned long ago not to show pain. "When will this happen?" she asked. "The guests arrive in 3 days. Among them will be a new species that has just joined our Galactic Council. They call themselves humans." Zalneth had heard of humans. They were said to be small and weak. They lived very short lives and had no mental powers at all. Most aliens thought they were barely smart enough to be called thinking beings. "Why invite them, Father?" "Politics, my child. They control several useful planets. We must appear welcoming to all council members, even the primitive ones." That night, Zalnith sat in her room looking at the stars. Her mechanical legs were charging in their dock by her bed. She wore a simple white robe that covered her thin body. In the mirror she could see what others saw: pale skin that barely glowed, eyes that were too large for her face, and the worst part, legs that would never work like they should. Tomorrow, the ships would start arriving. Princes and lords from 100 worlds would come to see if she was worth their time. She knew how it would go. They would be polite at first. They would bow and smile and say the right words. But then they would learn about her condition. One by one, they would find excuses to leave. The next day, Zalnith watched from her balcony as the first ships landed. Each one was more beautiful than the last. The Crystallians arrived in a ship made of living diamond. The flame dancers came in a vessel that burned but was never destroyed. Giant, bird-like beings called the Skylords flew down in ships with wings of pure energy. Each group brought their finest young males. They were all tall and strong and perfect. They moved with confidence and spoke with powerful mental voices. Zalneth felt smaller with each arrival. On the third day, a strange ship landed. It was made of simple metal and looked almost crude, next to the others. From it stepped beings that looked like children compared to the other aliens. They walked on only 2 legs and had no special powers that anyone could see. Their skin did not glow. Their minds were silent. But one of them caught Zalneth's attention. He was taller than the others and carried himself like a soldier. His dark skin was marked with small scars, and his eyes were the color of earth after rain. Unlike the other aliens who glided or floated, He walked with heavy, determined steps. Captain James Rodriguez looked up at the palace and smiled. It was not the cold, polite smile she had seen from the other visitors. It was warm and real and reached his eyes. That evening, there was a great feast to welcome all the guests. Zalneth sat at the high table in her formal dress. It was made of silver fabric that hid her mechanical chair. She watched as each group of suitors was introduced to the court. When the humans were announced, many aliens in the crowd made soft sounds of amusement. The humans did not seem to notice or care. They stood straight and proud as their leader spoke. "We are honored to be here," Captain Rodriguez said in perfect Zephyrian. His accent was strange, but his words were clear. "We bring greetings from Earth and hope for friendship between our peoples." Emperor Zarthek nodded politely, but Zalneth could feel his mild annoyance. The human had spoken aloud instead of using his mind. Of course, humans could not speak with thoughts, but it still seemed rude to many in the court. Later, as the formal ceremonies continued, Zalneth noticed the human captain watching her, not with pity like the others, but with simple curiosity. When their eyes met, he nodded once in greeting. She found herself nodding back. The tournament would begin tomorrow. Princes and lords would compete for the right to court her. She knew none of them really wanted her. They wanted her title, her family's power, her inheritance. But they did not want her. As the evening ended and the guests departed to their rooms, Zalneth remained on her balcony. The strange human ship sat quietly in the landing field, surrounded by the glowing vessels of the other visitors. It looked so simple and plain, but somehow it made her feel less alone. Tomorrow would bring new disappointments. But tonight, for reasons she could not explain, she felt a tiny spark of hope. The great hall buzzed with mental chatter as hundreds of aliens gathered for the morning feast. Princess Zalneth entered the room in her floating chair, wearing a blue dress that sparkled like starlight. She moved slowly through the crowd, feeling the weight of every stare. Prince Velkan of the Crystal Empire approached first. His body was made of living diamond that caught the light beautifully. When he spoke, his thoughts rang like bells in the minds of everyone nearby. "Princess, you honor us with your presence," he said with his mind. Then he looked at her chair and his mental voice grew cold. "I hope your condition does not affect your ability to produce healthy children." Zalneth felt her face burn with shame, but she kept her voice steady. "The doctors say my children would be normal, Prince Velkan." "Good," he replied. "A royal bloodline must remain pure." He bowed and moved away, already losing interest. More suitors came throughout the morning. Each one asked the same questions about her health, her inheritance, and her ability to bear children. None asked about her thoughts, her dreams, or what made her happy. They looked at her like she was a prize to be won or a problem to be solved. Captain Rodriguez sat at a table with the other humans, eating quietly. Unlike the other aliens who floated their food to their mouths with their minds, he used simple tools to cut and lift his meal. Zalneth found herself watching him. He seemed so calm while everyone else tried to impress each other with their powers. Lord Thaxmore of the Flame Dancers was telling a story about conquering a rebel planet. His body flickered with orange fire as he spoke. The other aliens listened, with admiration, their thoughts full of praise for his strength. "And then I burned their leader to ash," Thaxmore finished. The crowd made approving sounds. Captain Rodriguez did not look impressed. He continued eating his simple meal, occasionally speaking quietly with his fellow humans in their strange language. After the meal, the formal presentations began. Each suitor would have time to speak with the princess and show her their accomplishments. Prince Velkan went first, creating beautiful crystal sculptures in the air with his mind. They were lovely, but cold. Lord Thaxmore made flames dance in impossible shapes. The fire was warm and bright, but Zalneth could feel the destruction behind its beauty. One by one, the suitors displayed their powers. They moved mountains with their thoughts, sang with voices that could charm any mind, and created illusions so real they seemed alive. Each performance was more amazing than the last. When Captain Rodriguez's turn came, he simply stood and walked to the center of the room. He carried no weapons, made no flames, and moved nothing with his mind. The crowd grew quiet, wondering what this powerless being could possibly do. "Princess Zalneth," he said aloud, his voice carrying clearly through the silent hall. "I cannot make crystal sculptures or control fire. I cannot speak with my thoughts or move objects by willing them. I am just a human." Some aliens in the crowd made soft sounds of amusement. The human continued, "But I can tell you about the stars I have seen and the worlds I have walked on. I can share stories of my people and what we have learned in our short lives. Most importantly, I can listen." He looked directly at Zalneth. "If you would allow me, I would like to hear your thoughts. Not with mind magic, but with words. I would like to know what you think about the universe and your place in it." The hall was completely silent now. No one had ever asked the princess such a thing before. "I would like that, Captain Rodriguez," Zalneth said softly. Later that evening, there was a grand dinner to celebrate the first day of courtship. The dining hall was filled with floating tables and glowing decorations. Alien music played in the air, created by thought alone. Zalneth sat at the high table, picking at her food. The day had been long and tiring. She felt drained from smiling politely while aliens discussed her like she was not there. Suddenly, her chair made a strange clicking sound. The humming stopped. Zalneth felt herself start to fall as the floating mechanism failed. She crashed to the floor, her useless legs twisted beneath her. Pain shot through her body as the mechanical parts of her chair sparked and died. The beautiful dress tore as she hit the crystal floor. The entire hall went silent. Hundreds of aliens stared at her lying helpless on the ground. Some looked disgusted, others seemed embarrassed. Many simply turned away as if she had become invisible. "Someone help her," Prince Velkin said with his mind, but he did not move from his seat. "The servants will handle it," Lord Thaxmore replied, mentally. He continued eating, but before any servant could respond, Captain Rodriguez was there. He had jumped from his table and run across the room faster than Zalneth thought possible. Without hesitation, he knelt beside her. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his hands gentle as he checked for injuries. His voice was full of real concern. "My back," Zalneth whispered. "I cannot feel my legs at all now." "Medical emergency," Rodriguez called out in his own language. Two other humans ran over with a small bag of supplies. "We need to get her to the medical center," one of them said in broken Zephyrian. "The servants can carry her," Emperor Zarthek said from his throne. Even, he had not moved to help his own daughter. "No," Rodriguez said firmly. "I will carry her." Before anyone could object, he carefully lifted Zalneth in his arms. She was surprised by how strong he was. His body felt warm and solid, so different from the cool, glowing aliens she was used to. He carried her through the palace halls while his fellow humans cleared the way. Other aliens watched from doorways but did not offer help. In the medical center, Rodriguez gently placed her on the examination table. "Thank you," Zalneth whispered as the doctors began their work. "Do not thank me for doing what anyone should do," he replied. The doctors worked for hours. They fixed her chair and gave her medicine for the pain, but they shook their heads sadly. The fall damaged her remaining nerves, the head doctor told the Emperor. She may never have feeling in her legs again. When Zalneth woke up the next morning, she found a small book on the table beside her bed. It was made of paper, something she had never seen before. The title was written in both human letters and Zephyrian symbols, Stories of Earth Heroes. A note was tucked inside, written in simple Zephyrian words. "These are stories of humans who faced great challenges and found new ways to live. I thought you might like to read them." James Rodriguez Zalneth opened the book and began to read. The stories were about humans who could not walk, could not see, or could not hear, but who had done amazing things anyway. They had climbed mountains, painted masterpieces, and led their people to victory. For the first time in her life, she did not feel alone in her struggles. Someone understood that being different did not mean being broken. That afternoon, Captain Rodriguez came to visit. He brought more books and asked how she was feeling. "Better," she said. "Thank you for the stories." I have never read anything like them. On Earth, we believe that everyone has value, he said. We do not throw people away because they are different. They talked for hours. He told her about Earth cities that were built for people who could not walk. He described machines that helped the blind see and devices that let the deaf hear. Most amazing of all, he spoke of these things as normal, not as miracles. Why do you care? Zelneth asked finally. You barely know me. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. Because I see who you really are, he said. You are not your chair or your legs or your quiet mind. You are brave and smart and kind. Anyone who cannot see that is blind. As he left that evening, Zelneth felt something she had never experienced before. For the first time in her life, someone had looked at her and seen not a broken princess, but simply a person worth knowing. 3 weeks had passed since the accident. Princess Zelneth spent most of her time in the palace medical wing. The doctors had tried everything they knew, but her condition was getting worse instead of better. The nerve damage was spreading, and soon she might lose feeling in her arms too. Captain Rodriguez visited every day. He brought books about human science and stories of Earth inventions. They talked about everything from star travel to cooking recipes. Zelneth had never had a real friend before, and she looked forward to their conversations more than anything else. The doctors say there is nothing more they can do, she told him one afternoon. Her voice was sad but calm. She had accepted long ago that her body would never work like others. Rodriguez frowned. What exactly did they try? Medicine to heal the nerves, surgery to reconnect the damaged parts, mental healing techniques, everything our science knows. But not human science, Rodriguez said quietly. Zelneth looked at him with surprise. Human medicine is very primitive. Everyone knows that. Different does not mean primitive, Rodriguez replied. We may not have mental powers, but we have learned other ways to solve problems. He pulled out a small device from his pocket. It looked like a simple metal rectangle with lights on one side. This is a neural interface, he explained. On Earth, we use these to help people whose nerves do not work properly. The device reads the brain signals and sends them to machines. You mean it could make my chair work better? Much better than that, Rodriguez said, his eyes bright with excitement. What if we could build you legs that work? Not magic ones, that float but strong mechanical ones that respond to your thoughts? Zelneth stared at him. That is impossible. Is it? Your people are masters of mental technology. My people are masters of mechanical engineering. What if we combined both? That night, Zelneth could not sleep. She kept thinking about Rodriguez's words. Could humans really build working legs? She had seen their ships and tools. They were simple but very strong. Human machines seemed to last forever and rarely broke down. The next day, she made a decision that would change everything. I want to try, she told Rodriguez when he came to visit. Try what? Your human solution. I want to build mechanical legs. Rodriguez smiled, but his expression was serious. It will not be easy. We would have to work in secret. Your doctors will not approve, and neither will your father. I do not care, Zelneth said firmly. I am tired of being helpless. I want to try to fix myself. They began that very day. Rodriguez brought 2 other humans to help, Dr. Sarah Chen, a medical engineer, and Lieutenant Marcus Webb, a mechanical expert. They met in an unused room deep in the palace basement. First, we need to understand exactly how your body works, Dr. Chen explained. She was a small woman with quick hands and bright eyes. Human and Zephyrian biology are similar, but not the same. They spent days studying Zelneth's condition. Dr. Chen used human medical scanners that worked differently from Zephyrian devices. Instead of reading thoughts, they measured electrical signals in the body. Interesting, Dr. Chen said as she looked at the results. Your brain is still sending signals to your legs. The problem is that the nerves cannot carry the messages anymore. So we need to build a bridge, Lieutenant Webb added. He was a large man with hands stained by machine oil. We bypass the broken nerves and connect the brain signals directly to mechanical parts. The work was slow and difficult. They had to combine Zephyrian mental technology with human engineering. The aliens were masters of making machines respond to thoughts, but their devices were fragile and complex. The humans built things that were simple and nearly unbreakable, but they needed physical controls. Zalneth found herself learning about both technologies. The humans taught her how mechanical joints worked, how motors provided power, and how computer chips processed information. In return, she explained how Zephyrian mental interfaces could read brain patterns and translate thoughts into commands. "You are very good at this," Dr. Chen told her one evening as they worked on a prototype leg. "Have you studied engineering before?" "No," Zalneth replied. "My teacher said I was too weak to learn practical skills. They only taught me poetry and dancing and other princess things." "What a waste," Lieutenant Webb muttered. "You understand? These systems better than most of my trained engineers." Working together felt wonderful to Zalneth. For the first time in her life, her different way of thinking was helpful instead of wrong. Her weak mental powers meant she could not be overwhelmed by the complex thought patterns that confused other Zephyrians when they tried to use human technology. After 2 weeks of secret work, they had built the first prototype. It was a single, mechanical leg made of silver metal and black cables. The design was strange, part Zephyrian crystal technology, part human machinery. "Are you ready to try it?" Rodriguez asked. Zalneth nodded, though her heart was beating fast. Dr. Chen carefully attached the neural interface to her head. Lieutenant Webb connected the mechanical leg to the interface cables. The leg was heavy and cold against her skin. "Think about moving your leg forward," Dr. Chen instructed. Zalneth concentrated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the mechanical leg lifted and took a step forward. She gasped. She had not felt her leg move in years, but somehow she knew it had worked. "Again," Rodriguez said, grinning. Step by step, the mechanical leg responded to her thoughts. It was clumsy and slow, but it moved when she wanted it to move. "It works," she whispered, tears running down her face. "It actually works." Over the following weeks, they built a complete exoskeleton. It covered her legs and lower body like a second skin made of metal and crystal. The human engineering made it strong and reliable. The Zephyrian technology made it respond to her mind like her original body never could. When they were finished, Zalneth could not only walk, she could run faster than any normal Zephyrian. The mechanical muscles were stronger than biological ones. The computer brain could process her thoughts and predict her movements, making every step smooth and precise. "There is more," Dr. Chen said excitedly. "The neural interface can connect to other systems too. You could control computers, machines, even spaceships with just your thoughts." "We have created something completely new," Lieutenant Webb added. "Neither fully human nor fully Zephyrian, but better than either." But their secret could not last forever. One day, as Zalneth was practicing walking in the basement room, the door burst open. Emperor Zarthek stood there with a group of guards, his face dark with anger. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, staring at his daughter's mechanical legs. The human team stepped protectively in front of Zalneth, but she moved past them. For the first time in her life, she stood tall and looked her father in the eyes. "I am fixing myself, father," she said calmly. "With primitive human contraptions? This is disgraceful. A princess of Zephyria does not need mechanical parts like some broken machine." "I am not broken," Zalneth replied, her voice growing stronger. "I am different, and different can be better." To prove her point, she moved faster than any Zephyrian could follow. One moment she was standing still, the next she was across the room. The mechanical legs had given her superhuman speed and strength. The Emperor stared in shock. His guards reached for their weapons, but Zalneth was already back in her original position. "Impossible," the Emperor breathed. "Not impossible," Rodriguez said. "Just human engineering combined with Zephyrian ingenuity. Your daughter is not weak. Your Majesty, she is extraordinary." For the first time, Emperor Zarthek looked at his daughter and saw not a disability, but an ability no one else possessed. But word of the mechanical princess was already spreading through the palace. Soon, the news would reach the other suitors. Some would be amazed. Others would be afraid. and a few would see her new powers as a threat that needed to be eliminated. The real test was about to begin. News of Princess Zalneth's mechanical legs spread through the palace like wildfire. Some aliens whispered that she had become a monster, half machine and half living being. Others said the humans had corrupted her with their primitive technology. But everyone agreed on one thing: she was no longer the weak, helpless princess they had known. Emperor Zarthek called an emergency meeting with all the remaining suitors. Many had already left when they learned of Zalneth's condition, but 6 still remained. They gathered in the throne room with worried faces. "Gentlemen," the emperor began, his mental voice sharp with anger, "my daughter has done something very foolish. She has allowed these humans to attach mechanical devices to her body. This changes nothing about your courtship, but I wanted you to know." Prince Velkan of the Crystal Empire stood up, his diamond body flashing with light. "Your Majesty, I cannot marry a being that is part machine. It would pollute the crystal bloodline." Lord Thaxmore of the Flame Dancers nodded in agreement. "The fire spirits would reject such an unnatural union. I must withdraw my suit as well." One by one, the other suitors found excuses to leave. Some claimed religious reasons. Others said their families would not approve. Within an hour, only one alien suitor remained: Duke Krelvon of the Shadow Worlds. Krelvon was a tall, dark creature with eyes like black holes. His people were known for their cruelty and their hunger for power. He smiled with too many teeth as the others departed. "I have no problem with mechanical parts," he said, his mental voice oily and cold. "In fact, I find the princess more interesting now. Those devices could be very useful for the Shadow Worlds." The emperor looked relieved. At least one suitor remained, even if he was not ideal. "However," Krelvon continued, "I will need to examine the technology before I commit to marriage. I want to know exactly what these humans have built." That evening there was a feast to announce the departure of most suitors. The great hall felt empty with so few guests remaining. Zalneth sat at the high table, her mechanical legs hidden beneath a long dress. She had not worn the exoskeleton in public yet, but she could feel its weight and strength beneath the fabric. Captain Rodriguez and his team sat at a side table. They looked worried. Dr. Chen kept glancing at the princess with concern, while Lieutenant Webb watched Duke Krelvon with obvious distrust. "Citizens of Zephyria," Emperor Zarthek announced to the assembled crowd. "The courtship period has been educational. My daughter will choose her mate in 3 days during the final ceremony. All remaining suitors will present their final arguments." After the feast, Zalneth met secretly with Rodriguez in the palace gardens. The night air was cool, and the twin moons cast silver light through the crystal trees. "I am worried about Duke Krelvon," Rodriguez said without greeting. "My people have heard stories about the Shadow Worlds. They are not good stories." "What kind of stories?" Zalneth asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Slavery, torture, entire planets stripped of resources and left to die." "He does not want you as a wife, princess. He wants your technology as a weapon." Zalneth felt cold despite her warm cloak. "My father will not listen to warnings about Duke Krelvon. He is desperate for me to marry anyone, even a monster." "Then we need another solution," Rodriguez said firmly. "What do you mean?" Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment, staring up at the stars. When he spoke, his voice was soft but determined. "I mean that I could present myself as a suitor." Zalneth stared at him in shock. "James, that is impossible. You are not nobility. You are not even the same species. Ancient Zephyrian law says any being can court a royal family member if they prove their worth," Rodriguez replied. "I studied your legal codes while we were building your exoskeleton. But the trials, they are designed for beings with mental powers. You would have no chance? Maybe. Maybe not. Humans have survived by adapting to situations we were not built for. I think I can find a way." 3 days later, the final ceremony began. The great throne room was packed with aliens from across the galaxy who had come to witness the princess choose her mate. Duke Krelvon sat in a place of honor, his dark robes making him look like a shadow among the glowing aliens. "We gather today to conclude the courtship of Princess Zalneth," Emperor Zarthek announced. "Duke Krelvon of the Shadow Worlds will present his suit." Krelvon stood and moved to the center of the room. With his mind, he created images of the vast armies and fleets under his command. He spoke of the power and wealth he could offer, the worlds that would bow before their united strength. "Princess Zalneth will be the mother of a new empire," he declared. "Together, we will rule the galaxy with an iron fist. Her mechanical enhancements will lead our forces to victory over all who oppose us." The crowd murmured with a mixture of fear and admiration. Krelvon's power was impressive, but his vision was terrifying. "Thank you, Duke Krelvon," the Emperor said when the presentation ended. "Princess, it is time for you to choose." Zalneth stood slowly, her mechanical legs supporting her weight. She was about to speak when another voice rang out across the hall. "Wait!" Everyone turned to see Captain Rodriguez walking toward the throne. He wore his simple military uniform instead of royal robes, and he carried no weapons or symbols of power. "I request the right to present my suit to Princess Zalneth," he said in clear, loud Zephyrian. The hall erupted in shocked whispers. Some aliens laughed. Others looked offended that a primitive human would dare make such a claim. "Impossible," Duke Krelvon snarled. "This creature is not worthy to speak the princess's name, let alone court her." Emperor Zarthek looked furious. "Captain Rodriguez, you forget yourself. You are a guest here, nothing more." "I am a citizen of the Galactic Council just as you are," Rodriguez replied calmly. "Ancient law gives me the right to court any royal family member if I can prove my worth through the traditional trials." "The trials are not meant for your kind," the Emperor said coldly. "Then change them," Rodriguez said. "Or admit that Zephyrian law means nothing when it is inconvenient." The Emperor could not refuse without losing face before the assembled aliens. Grudgingly, he nodded. "Very well. You may attempt the trials. When you fail, you will leave this world immediately." Rodriguez bowed. "I accept those terms." He turned to face Zalneth, and for a moment the crowded throne room seemed to contain only the two of them. "Princess Zalneth," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent hall. "I do not offer you armies or wealth or power over others. I cannot create crystal sculptures or control fire with my mind." He paused, looking directly into her eyes. "But I can offer you something that no one else has, a partner who sees you as you truly are. Not a broken princess who needs fixing, not a weapon to be used for conquest, but a brilliant, brave, beautiful person who deserves to be loved for exactly who she is." The hall was completely silent now. Even Duke Krelvon had stopped his mental, muttering. "I choose you," Rodriguez continued, his voice full of warmth and certainty. "Not because you need choosing, but because in all the worlds I have visited, and all the beings I have met, you are the one I want to stand beside. You are the one I want to build a future with." He took a step closer, ignoring the guards who moved to intercept him. "I choose you, Zalneth, and I hope that someday you might choose me too." For a moment that seemed to last forever, princess and human looked at each other across the vast throne room. Then Zalneth smiled, the first real, joyful smile anyone had seen from her in years. "I accept your suit, Captain Rodriguez," she said clearly. "Let the trials begin." The crowd exploded into chaos. Some aliens cheered, others protested loudly. Duke Krelvon's face twisted with rage as he realized his easy path to power had just become much more complicated. But in the center of it all, James Rodriguez stood tall and unafraid. He had made his choice, and now he would prove that a human heart could be worth more than all the powers in the galaxy. The trials would begin at dawn. Emperor Zarthek had chosen 3 tests that would surely defeat the human captain. The first was a test of mental power. Contestants had to solve a complex puzzle using only their thoughts. The second was a test of strength. They had to lift and move massive crystal blocks with their minds or bodies. The third was a test of knowledge. They had to answer questions about galactic history, science, and politics. Captain Rodriguez spent the night preparing with his human team. Dr. Chen worked on small devices that might help him. Lieutenant Webb checked every piece of equipment twice, but Rodriguez himself seemed calm, almost peaceful. "Are you not worried?" Zalneth asked when she visited him in his quarters. "Terrified," Rodriguez admitted with a smile. "But fear can be useful if you do not let it control you. My drill instructor taught me that a long time ago." "You could still leave," she said quietly. "No one would blame you. These trials are designed to be impossible for humans." Rodriguez took her hands in his. Even through her mechanical gloves, she could feel the warmth of his touch. "Zalneth, I did not come this far to give up now. Besides, impossible just means no one has figured out how to do it yet." The next morning, thousands of aliens gathered in the great arena to watch the trials. Duke Krelvon sat in the place of honor, his dark eyes gleaming with confidence. He was sure the human would fail. Quickly and humiliatingly, Emperor Zarthek stood to address the crowd. "Today we test 2 suitors for the hand of Princess Zalneth. They will face 3 trials. The one who performs best will win the right to marriage." Duke Krelvon stepped forward first for the mental trial. A complex holographic puzzle appeared in the air, a maze of light and energy that shifted and changed every few seconds. Using his powerful mind, Krelvon began moving pieces of the puzzle, solving it layer by layer. His mental strength was impressive, and he completed the challenge in just 10 minutes. Now, it was Rodriguez's turn. The same puzzle appeared before him, but he could not touch it with his thoughts. For a moment, he just stood and studied the pattern. Then he pulled out a small device that Dr. Chen had built. It was a simple computer that could interface with Zephyrian technology. Rodriguez typed commands on its tiny keyboard, and the device began sending signals to the puzzle. "He is cheating," Duke Krelvon protested. "I am using tools," Rodriguez replied calmly. "Humans have always used tools to overcome our limitations." The judges discussed quietly, then decided to allow it. Rodriguez continued working, using his device to move puzzle pieces one by one. It was slower than using mental power, but he was steady and careful. After 20 minutes, he solved the puzzle completely. The crowd murmured with surprise. The human had found a way to compete despite having no mental powers. For the strength trial, massive crystal blocks were brought into the arena. Each one weighed as much as a small building. Duke Krelvon used his mind to lift and stack the blocks easily, his mental power wrapping around them like invisible hands. When Rodriguez's turn came, he walked over to examine the blocks carefully. Then he did something unexpected. He attached small mechanical devices to each block. The devices hummed with power as they activated. "What are those?" Emperor Zarthek demanded. "Anti-gravity generators," Rodriguez explained. "Human technology. We cannot move things with our minds, so we built machines to do it for us." Using a simple control panel, Rodriguez lifted the blocks and arranged them in a perfect pyramid. It took longer than Duke Krelvon's display, but the result was just as impressive. "Clever," Krelvon admitted, though his voice was cold with anger. "But the final trial will end this farce. The knowledge trial was the most difficult." Contestants had to answer questions about the history and science of 100 different worlds. The questions came faster and faster, requiring instant responses. Duke Krelvon answered most questions correctly. His ancient mind held vast knowledge collected over centuries of life. He spoke of wars fought before humans had discovered fire, of scientific principles that Earth scientists had never imagined. When Rodriguez's turn came, he struggled with the early questions. He knew human history well, but the galaxy was vast and old. Many of the questions were about events that happened before his species had even evolved. Then something changed. The questions shifted to more recent topics: trade disputes, technological innovations, current political situations. Rodriguez began answering faster and with more confidence. "How do you know about the mining rights conflict on Kepler 442? One judge asked in surprise. "I was there," Rodriguez replied. "I negotiated the peace treaty between the colonial government and the native population." As the questions continued, It became clear that while Duke Krelvon knew ancient history, Rodriguez understood the modern galaxy. He had traveled to dozens of worlds, met thousands of different beings, and helped solve real problems that affected real lives. Enough, Emperor Zarthik declared when the trial ended. Both contestants have shown impressive abilities, though, in very different ways. The judges spent an hour discussing the results. When they returned, their spokesman stepped forward. "This decision is difficult," he announced. Duke Krelvon showed superior raw power and ancient knowledge. Captain Rodriguez demonstrated remarkable ingenuity and practical wisdom. By the strictest interpretation of the trials, Duke Krelvon is the winner. The crowd began to cheer for the Duke, but the judge raised his hand for silence. "However," he continued, "we must also consider the spirit of these trials. They are meant to test worthiness as a mate, not just raw ability. Captain Rodriguez has shown qualities that go beyond power, creativity, determination, and genuine care for others." He paused, looking at both contestants. "Therefore, we declare the trials a tie. Princess Zalneth must choose between them." The arena fell silent as everyone turned to look at the princess. She stood slowly, her mechanical legs giving her perfect balance and grace. "I have already made my choice," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "But before I announce it, there is something you all must see." She walked to the center of the arena, then activated her exoskeleton's full capabilities. The mechanical legs extended and shifted, revealing their true design. She moved faster than any Zephyrian could follow, leaping impossible distances and lifting crystal blocks that would have crushed a normal person. "This is what human and Zephyrian cooperation can create," she announced as she demonstrated abilities that no one in the galaxy possessed. Not just mechanical legs, but a new way of thinking about what is possible. She turned to face the crowd, standing tall and proud. "Duke Krelvon offers me power built on fear and conquest. Captain Rodriguez offers me partnership built on respect and innovation. The choice is easy." She walked over to Rodriguez and took his hand. "I choose the human who saw strength where others saw weakness, who offered partnership where others offered domination, who proved that love is more powerful than any weapon." The crowd erupted in mixed reactions. Many cheered, amazed by what they had witnessed. Others protested, shocked that a princess would choose an alien over her own kind. Duke Krelvon stepped forward, his face twisted with rage. "This is not over, human. The shadow worlds do not forget insults." "Neither do humans," Rodriguez replied calmly. "But we do forgive them when people are ready to change." 6 months later, the wedding ceremony brought together beings from across the galaxy. The bride wore a dress of silver and starlight, walking on mechanical legs that gleamed like jewelry. The groom wore his simple military uniform, standing straight and proud as he spoke his vows. But the real celebration was in the crowd. Hundreds of beings who had been cast aside by their societies were there. The disabled, the different, the ones who did not fit normal expectations. Working with Princess Zalneth and Captain Rodriguez, they had formed the Galactic Adaptive Technologies Institute. The Institute had already developed new devices to help beings across the galaxy. Artificial eyes for the blind, mechanical hands for those born without them, communication devices for those who could not speak. Each invention made the galaxy a little more welcoming for everyone. As Zalneth and James exchanged rings, Emperor Zarthek watched from his throne. He had opposed the marriage at first, but seeing his daughter's happiness and the innovations she had inspired, he began to understand. True strength came not from rejecting differences, but from embracing them. The ceremony ended with the couple's first dance. Zalneth's mechanical legs moved with perfect grace as Rodriguez led her around the floor. They moved together like they had been made for each other. Different species, different backgrounds, but united by love and shared dreams. In the audience, Dr. Chen wiped tears from her eyes while Lieutenant Webb grinned proudly. They had helped build more than just mechanical legs. They had helped build a bridge between worlds, proving that when different people worked together, they could create something beautiful. As the celebration continued into the night, Princess Zalneth and Captain James Rodriguez stood together, on the palace balcony looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there were worlds they had never seen, people they had never met, problems they had never solved. But they would face them together, proving that the greatest power in the universe was not the ability to destroy or dominate, but the courage to choose love,